I woke up with blood running down my face, every breath stabbed through my ribs. And right above me, I saw my own daughter standing on the cliff, whispering to her husband, "It's done, they'll never know." That was the moment I realized the person who had just tried to kill me was not a stranger. It was my little girl, the child I had raised with all my love for over 30 years. If your own child tried to kill you, could you forgive them? Before I tell you the truth behind this nightmare, make sure to subscribe so you never miss more unbelievable true stories like this. And tell me in the comments, do you believe family blood is enough to stop someone from turning into a monster? My story began like any other ordinary family in America. At least, that is what I believed for almost 4 decades. My name is Margaret. I am 68 years old and I live in a quiet town in Vermont. My husband and I raised 2 children in our little wooden house. Daniel, our firstborn, and Emily, our youngest. Daniel was our pride. Smart, funny, always helpful. He was the kind of son who lit up every room. Emily was different, quieter, more distant, often lost in her own world. But I never played favorites. To me, they were both my children, my blood, my heart. Those years felt perfect. I worked as a teacher at the local elementary school. My husband owned a small carpentry shop. Life was simple, yet full of love. Family dinners around the oak table my husband built with his own hands. Autumn walks through maple-covered roads. Evenings on the porch. Dreaming of the future. It felt like happiness would last forever. Until the day in Colorado. Daniel was 38 when he joined friends for a ski trip. Hours later, the call came. He was dead. The police said he had slipped on the icy slope. They ruled it an accident within days. Emily was the last person to see him alive. She stayed silent, cold, distant. She didn't cry, she didn't scream. She just sat there with those empty eyes. I was heartbroken, but I buried my suspicions, because how could a mother believe her child could be guilty of her brother's death? Years passed. I forced myself to move on, until 3 decades later, when Emily suggested we celebrate with a special trip to the Grand Canyon. She smiled, held my hand, promised me a family adventure, but the moment we reached the lookout, her hand turned from gentle to violent. She shoved me straight in the chest. I felt my body fly backwards into the endless void. The wind roared in my ears, and I was certain this was the end. But fate had other plans. I didn't die. I crashed onto a lower ledge, broken and bleeding, but alive. And from that ledge, I heard everything. I heard Emily's voice, calm and cold. I heard her telling her husband that it was finally done. And worst of all, I heard the truth about my son Daniel. He hadn't died in an accident. Emily had killed him, just like she had tried to kill me. All for money, all for control. That day, my world shattered, because the real monster was not outside my home. It had been sitting at my dinner table for 30 years. When I hit that ledge, pain shot through every bone in my body. I could barely move, barely breathe. But my ears worked just fine, and what I heard made my blood run cold. Emily's voice, calm, steady, like she had rehearsed this moment for years. She fell. Nobody will question it. Just like Daniel. Daniel. The name stabbed through me harder than the fall itself. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drag myself up and grab her. But I couldn't. All I could do was lie there, broken, and listen. Her husband Ethan muttered something about calling for help, but Emily stopped him. No, we wait. We'll tell the story our way. The grieving children. The tragic accident. They will believe us. They always do. It was like I was watching a play, a sick performance. My daughter, plotting my funeral before I was even gone, lying there. I remembered the first time I had felt something off with Emily. She was maybe 15. Daniel had just gotten into college, and he was beaming with pride. We were all sitting at the dinner table, and Emily just stared at him, not with love, not with admiration, but with something darker. envy. It was only a flicker, but I saw it, and I ignored it, because what mother wants to believe her child is capable of hate. As the years went by, I brushed aside all the little signs, the cold looks, the lies about where she spent her money, the way she spoke about Daniel when she thought no one was listening. I told myself she was just struggling, just misunderstood. I kept telling myself it would get better. But now, lying on that ledge, I knew. Those little signs were warnings, and I had ignored them all. The truth hit me harder than the rocks had. Emily had killed her brother, and now she had tried to kill me too, not out of rage, not out of an accident, but because of money, because in her eyes I was just standing between her and everything she thought she deserved. The thought that my own daughter saw me not as her mother, but as an obstacle, shattered me more than my broken ribs ever could. I had no phone, no way to climb back up. I was trapped. But I had something Emily didn't know about, my Apple Watch. It was cracked, scratched, but still working, and with the last bit of strength I had, I pressed record. Her words, her confession, her plan, all of it, captured. As I lay there bleeding, I promised myself one thing. If I survived this, the world would finally know who Emily really was. Because what she said next was even worse than I imagined. Emily thought I was gone. She had no idea I was lying just a few feet below, bleeding but still alive. And the more she talked, the more I understood what this was really about. It wasn't about anger. It wasn't about some fight that got out of control. It was about money. She whispered to Ethan, thinking no one else could hear. With Mom gone, everything comes to me. The house, the land, the savings, all of it. My chest tightened. That little farmhouse in Vermont was my life. It was where I raised both of my children, where Daniel had taken his first steps, where Emily had celebrated every birthday. Every corner of that home carried memories. And now, to her, it was just a dollar sign. Ethan asked her quietly, "Are you sure about the accounts? What if the lawyer looks deeper?" Emily laughed, a cold laugh I had never heard from her before. Daniel was supposed to inherit most of it, but he's been gone for years. I made sure of that. And Mom already changed her will after he died. I convinced her. It's all mine now. The words hit me harder than the fall. I remembered that afternoon in the lawyer's office. Emily had been so sweet, sitting beside me, holding my hand. She told me it was just paperwork. She said it was about making sure things were easier for the family. And I believed her. God help me, I believed her. Now I realized she had played me like a fool. Every hug, every smile, every kind word, all of it had been part of her plan. I thought back to Daniel. The night before he died, he had called me. He said he needed to talk about something important, but I was busy, grading papers. I told him we could talk in the morning. The next morning, he was gone. Tears filled my eyes as I lay on that rock. Had Daniel tried to warn me? Did he know what Emily was planning back then? I tried to move, but the pain pinned me down. My only comfort was the tiny red light on my Apple Watch. Still recording. Every word Emily spoke was being saved. Her confession about Daniel, her obsession with money, her lies about the will, all of it. The woman I had loved as my daughter was gone. What stood on that cliff was not my child anymore. It was a stranger wearing her face. As the sun began to set, I knew one thing for certain. If I survived this, Emily would not. Not her lies, not her story, not the mask she had worn for 30 years, because what she said next revealed just how far she was willing to go. The sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the Grand Canyon in shades of gold and red. To any tourist standing up there, it was breathtaking. To me, lying broken on that ledge, it felt like the setting of my own funeral. Emily leaned against the railing, her camera hanging from her neck. She called out in a voice full of fake sadness. Mom loved this view. She always dreamed of seeing it. At least she got her wish before the end. My stomach twisted. She was already speaking about me in the past tense, like I was a story that had already been written. Ethan shuffled nervously beside her. "We should call for help. What if someone saw? Emily snapped her head toward him. No one saw. She slipped. That is all anyone needs to know. We stick to the story. We were here. We were taking pictures. And then it happened. Her calmness was terrifying. It was the same tone she had used when she lied to me in the lawyer's office. The same tone when she told me she wanted to take care of me as I grew older. Every word she spoke now was another knife to my heart. I forced myself to stay still, even though every part of me screamed to climb back up. But I couldn't. Not yet. I needed proof. And the Apple Watch on my wrist was still recording. Every second of her confession was being captured. My mind drifted back to Vermont. I thought of the farmhouse, the smell of apple pie cooling in the kitchen, the sound of Daniel's laughter echoing through the hallway, the little girl Emily once was, running through the yard with her braids flying behind her. When had that child disappeared? When had she turned into the stranger plotting my death at the Grand Canyon? As the shadows grew longer, Emily's mask slipped just a little. Her voice hardened. Once this is over, we sell the house, cash out the accounts, and we're free. No more worries, no more waiting. Free. That was the word she used. Like my death was nothing more than a ticket to the life she thought she deserved. Ethan still looked uneasy. He muttered something about the risk of police questions. Emily brushed it off with a wave of her hand. They will believe me. I am the grieving daughter. I will cry. I will sob. And everyone will hug me and say how strong I am. They will never suspect a thing. Hearing those words lit a fire inside me. I had been weak. I had ignored the signs. But not anymore. If I got out of this alive, I would tear off her mask for the whole world to see, because the next words out of her mouth revealed a truth even darker than I was prepared for. Emily's voice dropped lower, almost like she was afraid the canyon itself might repeat her words. But I heard every single one of them. He should have kept his mouth shut, she whispered. Daniel thought he could expose me. But accidents happen. Nobody questions a fall in the mountains. My blood froze. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It wasn't just the nagging thought I had buried for decades. It was the truth, straight from her mouth. Daniel hadn't died because of bad weather. He hadn't died because of some tragic misstep on the ice. He had died because his own sister made sure of it. I remembered the night before his trip. He had called me, his voice heavy with something I couldn't quite place. Mom, I need to talk to you. It's about Emily. But I was busy, sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of papers to grade. Tomorrow, I told him. Whatever it is, we'll talk tomorrow. There was no tomorrow. I felt tears burning my eyes as the memory played over and over. If I had just listened, would Daniel still be alive? Would all of this have been stopped before it started? Above me, Emily went on like she was reciting a shopping list. He found out I was taking money. Little by little at first. He confronted me, waving his papers around like some kind of hero. I told him to back off, but he wouldn't. He said he'd go to Mom and Dad. So I pushed him. One shove. That's all it took. My heart pounded so hard I thought my chest might split open. My daughter, my baby girl, had shoved her own brother to his death. Ethan spoke then, his voice uneasy. You don't have to keep saying it. We both know what happened. But if anyone ever finds out, we're finished. Emily's reply cut through the air like a knife. No one will ever find out. Daniel is gone, and after today, Mom will be too. Once the will is read, everything will be ours. And then, finally, I'll be free. That word again. Free. Like killing her family was nothing more than unlocking a cage. I stared at the sky above me, my face wet with blood and tears. Daniel had died trying to protect me, and now it was my turn to protect him, to make sure the world knew he wasn't careless, he wasn't clumsy, he was murdered. The little red light on my watch blinked steadily, capturing every syllable. That recording had just become Daniel's voice from beyond the grave, his final testimony. And I knew, if I could survive this night, his truth would finally be heard. But survival was far from guaranteed, because what Emily decided to do next nearly sealed my fate for good. Emily crouched beside me, her shadow blocking out the faint moonlight. Her hand brushed against my hair, almost tender, but her voice was sharp and cold. If she's still breathing, it won't be for long. It won't. I forced myself to stay limp, my eyes barely slitted shut, my breath shallow enough to fool her. Inside, though, my mind was racing. Every second, my watch kept recording, capturing every word she spilled. Ethan shifted nervously behind her. "Emily, we should go. Someone might have heard us." "No," she snapped back, her tone laced with fury. "If we leave her here and she survives, everything is ruined. The money, the house, the business, all of it. I'm not risking that. Not again. Not again." The phrase echoed like a bell in my skull. She had said the same words about Daniel, and now here she was, ready to make sure her mother never lived to tell the truth. Emily leaned closer. I could smell her perfume, mixed with the dirt and sweat of the climb. Her fingers grazed my cheek. To anyone else it might have looked like love, but I knew better. "She looks dead already," Ethan muttered. "Let's just say she slipped. Nobody's gonna question it. Old lady, bad footing, wrong trail. It'll all make sense." Emily's voice grew icy. "Do you think I'll leave it up to chance? No, I'm going to make sure." I wanted to scream, to fight, to grab her hand and beg her to remember I was her mother, but I knew that showing even the smallest sign of life would be my death sentence. So I stayed still, every muscle screaming, while inside my heart beat like a war drum. Ethan finally grabbed her arm. "Emily, listen. We'll clean it up. We'll tell the Rangers we all slipped, and by the time they find her, she'll be gone. That's enough. We can't risk carrying a body. We can't risk leaving tracks." Emily pulled her arm free. Her face twisted into something I could barely recognize. This wasn't my daughter anymore. This was a stranger wearing her skin. "Fine," she spat. "But if she opens her eyes, even once, I'll finish it myself." They began gathering their packs, whispering about the story they would tell. How the rocks gave way under my feet. How they tried to grab me, but I slipped too fast. How it was a tragic accident on a hike that was supposed to be a celebration. Every word was calculated, every detail rehearsed. And I realized something terrifying. They had been planning this far longer than I thought. As they prepared to leave, Emily turned one last time. She leaned down, her lips inches from my ear, and whispered words that chilled me to the bone. "Sleep well, Mom. You won't wake up again." The second Emily's footsteps faded into the dark, I let out the tiniest breath I had been holding. Every inch of my body screamed with pain, but I knew lying there was no longer an option. If they came back and found me breathing, it would be over. I forced my eyes open. The night sky was spinning above me, stars blurring like streaks of light. My ribs felt like they were on fire, my arm useless at my side. But my mind was sharp. I remembered Henry's plan. The phone in his pocket, it had to be recording. That was our only chance. I tried to crawl, dragging myself inch by inch across the cold dirt. The rocks cut into my palms, but I didn't care. All I could think was, I need that phone. I need the proof before they destroy everything. Somewhere in the darkness, I heard Henry groan, weak, but alive. Relief flooded me, and I whispered as loud as I dared, "Henry, stay still. They think we're dead. We can't let them know." He didn't answer, but I knew he heard me. His breathing slowed, matching mine, both of us clinging to the act that had already saved our lives once. I spotted the glint of metal by his side. The phone. Every ounce of strength left in me surged forward as I reached for it. When my fingers brushed against the device, I almost cried. The screen was cracked, but the red light blinked steady. It had captured everything. The whispers, the confessions, the threats. It was all there. I clutched the phone to my chest, knowing it was more valuable than my own heartbeat. But then another sound froze me, crunching leaves, footsteps. My blood turned to ice. Emily and Ethan had stopped. They were coming back. I shoved the phone under my body, pressing it against the ground. My heart raced so loud I was sure they would hear it. Their voices floated closer. "Wait," Ethan said, his voice uneasy. "What if she's still alive? We should check." Emily scoffed. "She's 65. Ethan, you saw the fall. Nobody survives that. If she did, she won't last until morning." "But what if—" "No what ifs." She cut him off. "We're not wasting time. We need to get back before sunrise." Their steps moved away again, fainter this time, but I didn't dare breathe until silence swallowed the woods. I lay there trembling, the phone hidden beneath me, the weight of truth pressing harder than my broken bones. We had the evidence. But how long could we survive in the middle of nowhere, injured and hunted by our own family? And worse, what if they realized before morning that I was still alive? The woods felt endless that night. Every sound became sharper, every shadow darker, and every second stretched like an hour. I lay there, clutching the phone under me, praying the blinking red light wouldn't fade. Henry groaned again, softer this time. I crawled to him, dragging myself across the dirt. His face was pale, his breathing ragged, but his eyes flickered open when I whispered his name. "We have it." "Henry," I murmured. The phone recorded everything. A weak smile tugged at his lips. "That's our lifeline. We just have to survive long enough to use it." Easier said than done. We were broken, stranded in the middle of the mountain with no cell signal and no food or water. The cold was seeping into my bones, making my fingers stiff as I tried to cover Henry with my jacket. I didn't know how much longer we could last. Suddenly, a distant howl echoed through the trees. Coyotes. Normally it would have been terrifying, but tonight it felt almost merciful. At least the animals didn't lie, didn't betray, didn't push their own parents off a cliff. I forced myself to focus. There had to be a way. Somewhere on this trail there would be hikers in the morning. If we could just make it through the night, someone would find us. But then another thought hit me like ice water. What if Emily and Ethan came back before sunrise? What if they realized we weren't dead and decided to finish what they started? I squeezed Henry's hand, whispering, "We have to move, even if it's just a little." Every inch we crawled might mean the difference between life and death, so we inched forward, both of us dragging broken bodies through dirt and rocks, leaving a faint trail behind us. I knew it was dangerous. If Emily found that trail, she'd know instantly we were alive. But staying still meant certain death. Hours blurred together. Sometimes I lost track of time, the darkness swallowing every sense of direction. My body begged me to stop, to just lie down and give in. But the thought of my grandchildren's faces kept me moving. They deserved to know the truth. They deserved to grow up without lies. Just when I thought I couldn't take another crawl, a faint light flickered in the distance. At first I thought it was the moon playing tricks on me, but then I saw it again. A flashlight beam cutting through the trees. Henry saw it too. "Rescue," he rasped, barely above a whisper. But a new wave of dread hit me instantly. What if it wasn't rescue at all? What if Emily and Ethan had turned back with their own flashlights, ready to check if their plan had really worked? The beam of light cut through the trees again. Steady this time. I held my breath, pressing Henry's hand tight, trying to quiet even the sound of our shallow gasps. Every instinct told me rescue was near, but another voice whispered something darker. What if it was them? The crunch of boots on gravel grew louder. Twigs snapped. Leaves rustled. Each sound made my pulse spike until I thought my heart would betray me. Then, a voice. Low, masculine, carrying through the woods. "Hello, anybody here?" Henry's eyes widened. That wasn't Ethan. It was deeper, more commanding. But I didn't let myself relax just yet. It could still be a trick. The flashlight beam swept across the ground, moving closer, until it landed on a broken branch just feet from where we lay. My instinct screamed at me to call out, but my fear nailed my tongue to the roof of my mouth. If it was the wrong person, one word could seal our fate. The voice came again, this time louder. This is Park Rescue. If you're injured, make a sound. Relief nearly broke me open, but caution held me down. Rescue teams don't usually hike at night unless they've been called. So, who had called them? Henry coughed, weak and ragged. Before I could stop him, the light swung instantly toward us, blinding me. I threw my arm over my eyes as the crunch of boots closed in. Here I found them. Within seconds, 2 men in orange jackets crouched beside us. Their hands were steady, their voices calm but urgent. Stay still. We're going to get you out of here. I wanted to cry. For the first time since the fall, I felt the weight of hope. But that hope cracked when I noticed something. Just behind the rescuers, further down the trail, 2 other figures lingered in the dark, watching, silent, Emily and Ethan. They hadn't left after all. They were standing just far enough back to keep their cover, but close enough to make sure we were really finished. One of the rescuers leaned in. "Ma'am, you're safe now. We'll get you to a hospital." But I couldn't take my eyes off the shadows behind him. My daughter's outline was clear in the moonlight, her arms crossed, her gaze fixed right on me. It was almost as if she was daring me to say something. My lips trembled. The rescuers were kind, professional, but I knew one wrong word and Emily would twist the story. She'd paint herself as the grieving daughter, the one who called for help, and with her crocodile tears, who would doubt her? I needed proof. The phone pressed against my chest was warm, heavy, more precious than gold. It held everything. But how could I hand it over without Emily noticing? Henry must have read my mind. His weak whisper brushed my ear. "Wait. Not here. Not yet." The rescuers secured us on stretchers, their radios crackling with updates about the helicopter on its way. They moved quickly, efficient and gentle. But in my gut, fear twisted tighter. Because as they strapped me down, I caught Emily's smile in the dark, a smile that told me she wasn't finished. Not yet. And in that chilling moment, one thought nearly stopped my heart. What if she convinced the rescuers to leave us in her care before we ever made it to the hospital? As the rescuers lifted us onto stretchers, I kept my eyes locked on Emily. Her smile was small, almost invisible to anyone else, but to me it was a dagger. I knew she was planning her next move, even as the helicopter blades thundered overhead. The rescuers carried us out of the woods. For a brief moment, I closed my eyes and let the sound of the rotors wash over me. It was the sound of survival, but I also knew it was the sound of a battle that was far from over. At the hospital, chaos surrounded us. Doctors shouted, nurses rushed, machines beeped in every corner. Emily and Ethan followed close behind, their performances flawless. Emily clung to a nurse, sobbing about her poor mother. Ethan shook his head, mumbling about how the rocks gave way. If I didn't know the truth, I might have believed them myself. But I had the phone, and that phone carried every lie they had spoken, every plan they had whispered, every confession they had slipped. When Detective Harris arrived, I knew it was time. With trembling hands, I pulled the phone from under the blanket and gave it to him. For a moment, he just looked at me. Then he nodded, as if he understood the weight of what I was handing him. The recording was played, not just once, but over and over. Every word was clear. Emily's voice, Ethan's fear, the confession about Daniel, and most damning of all, their plan to push us off that cliff. The performance ended that day. Emily's tears dried. Ethan's excuses failed. The masks they had worn for so many years cracked and shattered under the weight of the truth. And as the officers led them away, handcuffed and powerless, I finally felt something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. Looking back now, I realize this story isn't just about betrayal. It's about resilience. It's about how even when your own blood turns against you, even when the people you trusted most try to break you, there's still strength inside you that they can never steal. I share this not just as a warning, but as a reminder. Sometimes the danger we fear most doesn't come from strangers. it comes from the people closest to us. And that truth is terrifying, but it also forces us to open our eyes. So here is the lesson I carry every single day. Never ignore your instincts. Never let someone convince you to silence the voice inside that tells you something is wrong, because that voice might be the very thing that saves your life. And now I want to ask you, what would you do if you discovered your own child was capable of something this dark? Could you still see them as family, or would you see them as a stranger wearing the face of someone you once loved? Tell me in the comments, because I want to hear your thoughts. Stories like this are painful, but they also remind us of the importance of trust, of love, and of protecting those values even when everything else falls apart. If this story moved you, if it made you think, make sure to hit the like button. And if you want more stories like this, stories that shock you but also make you reflect on your own life, then subscribe to the channel. Because trust me, there's so much more to come.